So when did you start going by Bill Bob, or was that an all? That was
When I
very,
started this school, I went to Northward School, and everybody called me Bill Bob. I mean, that was just it. Teachers did, students did, and that was my name.
Wow.
And I apparently wasn't all that good a student in spelling because I couldn't really do the William Roberts deal until I got in the fifth grade. I asked that fifth grade teacher how to spell William.
Matt Griswold back again, neighborhood real estate for another episode. Why do you choose to call Bolivar home? And it seems like I keep meeting with these folks, Bill Bob, that don't need an introduction. And I know people are already seeing you on the video going, hey, I know exactly who that is. And so, but just for my sake and maybe some other folks, because I haven't gotten to spend some time with you, but I've been excited about this. This is Bill Bob Kallenbach. Maybe tell us a little bit about yourself to start.
Well, I've been a resident of Bolivar for 84 years.
84.
Came here when I was 2 years old. My father had been in state legislature, and he'd taken a job here as the extension agent, county extension agent. And so we moved here from Jeff City, and it's been home ever since. I've been away. I was away to college for a while, and I was in the service a couple of years.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Harding University in Searcy, Arkansas.
Okay.
I have a granddaughter that's going to school there now.
Very cool.
And we've always been close to that school. And anyway, we moved here not really knowing very many people, but it wasn't long until we had opportunities, privileged to meet some of the good, stable people of Bolivar, and there were several of them, and still are.
Yeah.
And it's just been home to me. When I was released from the service, it didn't take me long to come back to Bolivar.
What did you do in the service? Which branch were you in?
I was in the Army, and I was a draftee.
Oh.
We had the draft at that particular time, and I was drafted to Fort Carson, Colorado, and I was in a military police unit.
Military police. Is that where they advised you to go, or you wanted to do that?
No, we didn't really have any choice as to what direction we were going, but in good representation of people that you had confidence in, they found a place for you to go.
That's right. Yeah.
And they found something to do when you got there.
Yeah.
It didn't take us very long to find out what we had to do and how much time we had to do it in.
Can you take me back to that moment though, because the draft, because I'm post-draft era there, but did you literally see it in a paper? Like,
no.
How did that work?
We had what they called a selective service board, and they kept up on the activities of what was happening in regards to the coming and going of military people, or those that were subject to serving. And your number came up, and you could go to the office, and we had one here in town, and you could find just exactly kind of where you are on the list.
Yeah.
Some of them even volunteered for the draft. They could see that it would be more compatible for them to go one time than another. But I didn't do that, but my name came up, I went, and it was in January, and it was cold, and we were sent up to Kansas City, and it was cold up in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And we went to the Union Station up there, right across the street, to the induction center, and we had physical examinations. We came back, and they told us basically that we'd be getting a call, and we went back to Kansas City, and I was sent to Fort Carson, Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
Nice place to be. At the time, there was really no active military action, where it's kind of between the Korean War and the Vietnam era, but peacetime.
Yeah.
And a great experience. And I was there with basically 90% of the people that were drafted. And in our particular unit, we had a company that consisted of 140 people.
Yeah.
And most of the guys that were draftees had been in school, had a chance to go to college. And in fact, our company averaged 2.5 years of college for trooper. And great bunch of guys, most of them from the Midwest.
Are you still in contact with any of them?
I'm in contact with 3 of them.
Wow, pretty cool.
And I hear from this one monthly. He was a highway patrolman back from Marion, Indiana, and went back and did a career with them.
Okay.
And so I'm in touch, but you get our age,
yeah,
there's more of those people that were in that company that are not living that are still living.
I want to ask you a few questions here. Okay, so I'm excited to be able to spend time with you. I've known you for a while, but not really well. But you are a man of many hats, and the first hat I want to ask you about is this hat, because I think of Bill Bob Kallenbach, and I think you're always wearing this hat. Is there a story behind this, or where did you? I don't know. It's kind of like your look. What's your?
Yeah, I've developed that over the years, but the reason I still have it is because I still owe 2 payments on it.
It's almost all yours.
Almost.
It's almost all yours. Yeah. Yeah, I see this. I see you wearing the hat all the time, and it's like, oh, that's Bill Bob. I know exactly who that is, that hat. But talk about maybe some of the other hats that you wear. I mean, right now we're at the Bolivar Church of Christ office right here on Killingsworth, and maybe this is one of the hats that that you wear, and you're heavily vested. And you said you were here since the beginning of this church in the 50s, right?
That's true.
What other hats do you wear? And maybe you can start with that one and move on to others.
Well, I'm an elder here in the church. We have 4 people who serve in that capacity, and I'm one of them. And actually, the things basically that I do pretty much is just administrative things for the church. Things that I see need to be done, things that I feel need to be done for the best interest of the church. But I've worked in that capacity for over 40 years. And you're asking me about leading songs. I started leading songs when I was 12, and I'll be 86 next week. So, basically what that figures out.
Yeah.
And I still like to sing. I'm not as good a songwriter maybe as I once was, but at the same time, I still enjoy the music. And really, I'm not really a highly trained musician. I did sing in glee club and mixed chorus when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of family events where we'd sing, but another couple used to sing with my wife and I, and we did a quartet music for special events like weddings, funerals, that sort of thing.
I think this is a commonality that you and I have. I was a worship leader at church for 7 years in Clever before I moved back to Bolivar in 2018. But I grew up in choir. Always loved to sing. I love the barbershop quartet stuff. The chorus line stuff, the concert choir stuff. I've always loved that, singing in church. You probably don't need the hymnal anymore, right? Like you just sing it again, right?
The hymnal is not the hymnal. The hymnal that we're leading now is the 5th hymnal that we've had since I've been here.
Right. Did you start with like the old Broadman or something like that, or?
We started with a hymnal that was edited by L.O. Sanderson, who was the preacher at South National Church of Christ in Springfield for many years. And he had 2 editions, and we used both of them. He used to help us with special events here at the church.
Okay.
He'd come and help us with gospel meetings, and he had a son by the name of Lloyd that would come with him, and he'd direct the music, and Dad would preach, and we used that. And then we've had some other good ones, and the worst thing about changing hymnals is not so much you lose the familiarity as to how the structure of the book is. You always lose some really nice gospel songs every time you change.
I thought you were going to say the page number changes that you had memorized already.
The page numbers do change. You do have a memory of some of those numbers, but at the same time, to give up some of those old hymnals, those old hymns you used to use and think a lot of, you don't have in that book. It's kind of a loss. Of course,
Yeah.
you'll always have some new ones too that you haven't really used that you can learn and to replace them with.
What are some of your favorite hymns?
Well, uh,
Putting you on the spot now.
yeah, some of my most favorite hymns are songs that really, Mosey Lister. I like all of Mosey Lister's songs.
Okay.
Mosey Lister lived in Tampa, Florida. I used to communicate with him on the phone. But he wrote How Long Has It Been That You Talked to the Lord. That's one of the melody songs.
Okay.
And I always also liked Will Thompson's songs. And he has a song that's called Lead Me Gently Home, Father. That's really a good one. And he has one that's called Softly and Tenderly.
Oh, yeah.
He has that.
Good
He
ones.
also wrote Jesus Is All the World to Me. Those are all good songs.
Yeah.
And he was, every time he come up with a song, it would be something pretty special, really.
Yeah. I remember still being, of course, growing up in church and then being in church with my dad. I could hear him singing the tenor line, and my dad's mom, my grandma, she had this deep alto voice, and I can still remember like Victory in Jesus, and I can hear her alto voice just kind of booming that out there too. That's always been one of my favorites.
A long time ago, I say a long time ago, back in the early 1900s, a lot of the hymns that were written by people in our brotherhood as such that went to school in Arkansas.
Hmm.
And there was a school of music there that Albert Brumley went to. Of course, Albert Brumley is famous for, most famous song is I'll Fly Away.
Okay.
But he'd written maybe 600 different gospel hymns in his life.
Yeah.
And he was very, very special. But he was a graduate of the Hartford School of Music.
Okay.
Down in south central part of Arkansas. And you mentioned Victory in Jesus, the guy that wrote that, he went to school there at the Hartford School of Music too.
Yeah.
And he was a super good musician and also was an instructor in that school.
Okay. Did you play guitar or anything like that?
No.
Because your son John, I think I've seen him playing guitar.
John
right?
plays guitar and he's a good guitar player.
Yeah.
He just picked up on that and he's kind of worked that a little bit and he does pretty good.
Pretty good for the sing-alongs.
But
there.
I don't do it. I mean, I don't play a musical instrument. And all my granddaughters,
Yeah.
they're into that music thing, which is good.
That's good.
Great.
So the church part there, you're also county clerk. Talk about some of the other hats maybe you've worn.
Well, I worked in county government for 20 years as a county clerk, and it probably one of the most enjoyable, enriching times of my life. I like the people.
Yeah.
I have certain people that would just, every time they'd come to town, they'd come to the courthouse just to visit with me and tell me things that happened about their family. They weren't up there to do any kind of governmental business. And we try to reach out and do more, basically, than what the revised statutes of the state of Missouri depict that a county clerk should do, would do, could do. And we try to go beyond that and help them with little things really that didn't seem big to us, but maybe paramount to them. And we spent a lot of time doing that. And if there's anything really that I'd like people to remember about me being in the courthouse working in county government, is the fact that we reached out to people to try to help people with their needs.
I love that. That's the legacy part, right?
And there was a lot of other things that happened there, but I'm telling you, I worked with a great bunch of people, and of course worked shoulder to shoulder with the county commission. They were called the county court at that particular time, but I would kind of set up their work schedule for them and basically show them and tell them that they had certain things that they needed to do in a timely way, and give them options on what, that they might do, could do.
Yeah.
And I never did really work with any of them. I worked with 16 different judges while I was there.
Wow.
And I don't think I ever worked with any of them that I didn't really like, that
Good.
didn't respect me.
Yeah. Can I ask you a crazy question? And I'm asking out of ignorance. So your name was Bill Bob. Has it always been Bill Bob, or did you morph into a Bill Bob, or where did Bill Bob come from? You don't hear it very often, is it?
Well, apparently it came from my parents.
But yeah. You didn't know. Did you ask him where that came from?
They named me after my granddad and also after my father. My dad's name was Robert.
Okay.
And my granddad's name was William, so my name is William Robert. And that morphs down to Bill Bob. If people call me Bill Bob, I know that they have known me all my life. If you have them call me Bill or William, I know that I'll answer to that, but
they're collected money.
that's right.
Most people are, yeah.
they basically have some other deal and just be friendly.
Yeah. So when did you start going by Bill Bob, or was that an all? That was
when I started to school. I went to Northward School, and everybody called me Bill Bob. I mean, that was just it. Teachers did, students did, and that was my name.
Wow.
And I apparently wasn't all that good a student in spelling because I couldn't really do the William Robert deal until I got in the 5th grade. I asked my 5th grade teacher how to spell William.
Yeah.
So you know that I wasn't using it too much.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. All right, so I just wanted to ask that question because I was always curious, and it's funny because I have asked a couple of other people that question that have known you for a long time. Where does that come from? And they're like, I have no idea. So I thought, now we've set the record straight on Bill Bob. So if we'll call you Bill Bob, then we're friends.
That's fine with me. I'll answer to that.
Yeah.
Now, I was told by another family member and that there was a poem that had something to do with Bill Bob in it.
Oh.
And really, I can't tell you the name of the poem, but I know that part of that is this: fate has been dawning another new day. Think, will thou let it slip useless away? And in the course of that thing, the word Bill Bob was in there. And my dad used to quote that to me. Not the Bill Bob part necessarily, but get up and get to going, make something happen.
That's great, though. I love that. So let me maybe talk about you've made the opportunity or made the choice to be able to come back to Bolivar, and if we're talking about why you call Bolivar home, what draws you to Bolivar? What do you think of? What made you stay and continue to call it home?
Number one, the people that live here.
That's been a common answer, by the way, in these, the people. What is it about the people, though, do you think?
Well, here's my perspective of the people, and it hasn't changed. People are friendly. People are interested in doing things to help the community grow. People are morally straight. People are compassionate, and we just have a wonderful bunch of people here. Sometimes we maybe take them for granted, but they're there, and if you reach out to them and you can prove a need to them that will help the community, they'll respond to that every time.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah,
I've seen that over there.
And then the opportunities to have good schools, and the opportunity that you have to be involved in communities. People are reaching out to you, wanting you to also be part of what's happening here.
Yeah.
Those are things that I see and think that are important, I think, to a good community.
And that's caused you to want to stay in Bolivar and call Bolivar home. And that's good. Is there other things outside of that?
Well, when I was in high school, we had a farm that my father and mother bought, and they never did live on that farm.
Okay.
But my dad, being in agriculture, had it kind of for experimental purposes, really. But he worked hard and did some things that really made it productive. And we still had that, and really, when I got out of the service, I wanted to try to maintain that if I could.
Yeah.
Because my parents had moved that time and had left Polk County, and I was the only one here.
Okay.
So there was a house in town where they lived and the farm that were here, and somebody needed to kind of look after them. And so that's what I did. I farmed for about 6 years before I was married. And then when I was married, we lived on the farm and raised our kids there.
Yeah.
And we still have the farm, and it's not as productive maybe as it needs to be, but at the same time, it's a good thing and great place to live, great place to raise a family.
Yeah.
And that was another factor in me coming back here.
Okay. Let me ask you about, and I don't know a lot about it, but I know your name is associated with like coon dogs. What's the association there? Did you raise them? Did you hunt them? Did you sell them? What did you?
Well, I started hunting with my dad and his brother in 1951.
Okay.
And it wasn't very long. I kind of fell in love with the dog. Now, my father was a bird dog man, and he trained and raised bird dogs, but we never did have hounds or tree dogs.
What kind of dogs did he have?
He had pointers,
Okay.
English pointers, but at the time, it was a great place really to bird hunt because we had a lot of quail.
Okay.
And in fact, one of the main reasons that we came here was not necessarily because there were a lot of quail here, but my dad's older brother had a service station in Jeff City, Missouri, and he had a friend there that was a state representative from here by the name of Charles U. Becker. Charles U. Becker was from Wishart, Missouri.
Oh.
And anyway, he was a great advocate for better roads. And he went to Jeff City, and wasn't too long, well, he did a lot of different things. He was an investigative reporter for the Kansas City Star at one time.
Wow.
And he also was an oil wildcatter, and he wrote short stories and sent them back east and had those things published. And I mean, he was quite a character. My dad's second oldest brother, though, became great friends with Charles U. Becker and came to Polk County, Missouri with Charles U. Becker and bird hunted down here numerous times before we had a chance to move here. So we knew through him, basically what agriculture potential might have looked like to him.
Okay.
And when the opening came here for the extension thing, we came here and we moved here partially due to the fact that Uncle Harry, my dad's brother, recommended that we really seriously consider coming down here.
Okay.
Charles U. Becker later on became Secretary of State, and he was Secretary of State for two and a half terms, or 10 years. And we, have had that tie. Charles U. Becker also ran for governor, almost was elected governor.
Yeah.
So he was partially responsible for us moving here.
For you getting here. Okay.
Now, we're back down in Wishart Township. We have a business down there. My son manages family business, and it's in Wishart Township. So we've kind of gone full circle.
That's
with
great.
Wishart Township.
That's wonderful, though, right? That's what another piece that makes it, close to home there. Let me ask you this: you're a regular at the Brenda's Cafe there for breakfast. You sit at the large table. Is there a large table there with a bunch of other fellas telling stories? Because I want to bring the camera up there sometime and hit record What types of things would I hear at the breakfast table at Brenda's with all y'all?
Well, it's kind of changed a little bit,
Yeah.
really. The thing that's made it change is the fact that we've lost some of our good staff members.
That's right.
And with the changes comes different interests, of course. At one time, seemed like when we first started going to coffee there, the number one thing was the livestock markets and golf. We don't have any golfers over at that table right now. We do talk about the livestock markets a little bit.
Okay.
And we talk about, I have another friend there, and he's a dog man, and he quizzes me about dogs. And you asked about dogs a little while ago. I didn't tell you. Not really a good trainer, but I started buying and selling trained dogs. This was a hobby that I had, and I got into it pretty good basically when I came home from the service, and then when I was married I continued to hunt some, and I'd evaluate these dogs by hunting them, and then I would resell them. And I advertised in some magazines, and I had traffic coming from those magazines, but I also established some long-time contacts with hunters, and I had people that worked with me that were dog spotters that knew basically kind of what I was looking for, and tell me about them, and I'd go look at them and evaluate them. If I'd buy them, I'd generally give them a commission on them.
Okay.
But it was just a hobby that I had, but it grew into really a kind of a small business. There was really that much money in it, but I did go through several dogs. In fact, my last record that I have, and I'm still active, I have bought and resold 1,627 trained dogs in my dog career.
Wow. Do you still do it? Are you still doing that?
Still doing it.
Do you have any dogs right now?
I do have. I have 4 dogs, and I have to have help from my co-hunters to help me handle the dogs.
Yeah.
But I'm still active. I've got people that just hang on and want me to find them this and find them that, and temptation's still there. I'm not mobile like I need to be a good hunter. I can still hear good, basically what the dogs are doing, but I'm not as good at it as I used to be.
Yeah. So let me ask, let's see, you and Judy have John. Is John the only child, or do I not know? Talk about your family.
Thank you. My oldest son is Robbie. Robbie and his wife Rachel live in Columbia.
Okay.
He is with the University of Missouri Extension, and he has been a teacher there in school. He's no longer teaching, but he's had a career with them, and Robbie's pretty versatile person. They send him around all over the state doing different things to represent Extension, and he's pretty good at it.
Yeah.
He's our oldest child. They have three children, and one of them lives there in Columbia. One lives in California now. One lives in Arkansas. And then John he's the middle one.
Okay.
And he and Maria, of course, live here, and he's an attorney. And also he has a business called A1 Tool. And that involves other family members. My wife and I work there in A1 Tool. Very limited.
Yeah.
But we're there every day, pretty much doing the things. And they have 3 girls. Elena's a student at Harding University in Searcy, and Anna's a senior in high school here in Bolivar.
Okay.
And then Dory, she's a sophomore here in school. And then I have a daughter. We have a daughter that lives in California. She's a nurse practitioner there, and she has 2 girls, Eleanor and Charlotte, and they're both in California. So yes, we've got three children, and we have 8 grandkids, but we don't have any great grandkids.
Not yet.
And we're longing for that, but we want to come in due process time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a caveat there. We want it, but do it right. Okay. So let me ask you. Let me ask you this too. So, for those folks that maybe are considering, I don't know, Bolivar as a destination, maybe for their family or something like that, what would you? I don't know. Give us a sales pitch here for Bolivar. What are you thinking here? What would you tell folks considering a move?
Well, there's some good things happening here in our community. I see Bolivar really kind of as the leading health representative of our particular area here.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And really, Citizens Memorial Hospital has an outreach and has clinics scattered around different places. And they're the number one employer here in the county of Polk. They have in excess of 2,300 people that work through CMH. As far as health needs are concerned, it's great. And the area that they serve is a pretty large area, mostly to the north and northwest. But great things are happening there, and there's the opportunity of school here. Our secondary schools, primary schools are good. Southwest Baptist University is here and has added a lot to our community over the years. I mean, the caliber of people that have associated with the college and the staff of people there have been top of the line. I work with some of them in civic organization stuff, and I'm telling you, I've established a good friendship with those people, and they're wonderful people. And I don't know that there's quite as much agriculture potential here as far as employment is concerned as there may have been at one time, because the farm thing has consolidated, and we don't have a lot of small farms like we used to have. We have larger farms. You know, the agriculture potential is here, and we're still producing stuff. But as far as that being something that would draw people, I don't really know about that.
Okay. You mentioned your kids and the grandkids, and what is something maybe you hope that they take from you? Like, if you could say, "Hey, man, this is the thing that I wish that you would, that I hope I leave you." What is the thing that you're hoping most that you would leave?
Well, the first major concern in their lives, it should be the major concern in everybody's life. How are these people doing spiritually?
Yeah.
And if they have anything in life that's not focused on being a Christian and living a Christian life, then they need to reprioritize their life. That's number one. Number two, I would like to see them be successful in the business that they're in or whatever they're doing. That would be probably number three. The second thing I think probably would be how these people are measuring up as parents, husbands, and wives.
Yeah.
That would be number two, and the business part would be number three. Those are things that I would like to leave as a heritage to my family.
Something tells me you've done a great job of being that example in all three of those categories.
Well, I appreciate your compliment. I think you've probably only seen one side of the coin, but
What's the other side? We have time. What's the other side?
we don't want to talk about it.
All right. Well,
you know, there's I don't know whether this is apropos or not, but there was a poem that was called "Me and Myself," and it was based on you being able to evaluate yourself and to see yourself in what perspective that you actually exist in. And it says, "I want to go out with my head erect, and I want to deserve all men's respect, but here in this struggle for fame and pelf, I've got to be able to like myself. I don't want to look at myself and know that I'm bluster and bluff and an empty show, because I never can hide myself from me. I see what others may never see. I know what others may never know. I cannot fool myself, and so whatever happens, I want to be self-respecting and conscience-free. So that's kind of a goal that we all should have, really.
I love that. That's great. How long have you known that?
Well, I've known her several years. I learned that poem in 1952. Actually, I was in sixth grade in Northwood School.
Yeah.
My teacher was Celestine Ball, and she had a mode of discipline unlike probably anything that you'd find in her schools today.
Yeah, wouldn't fly. Huh?
If you got in difficulty on the playgrounds, which apparently I did occasionally, you answered to her and she would say, hey, here it is. You choose whether you want to memorize this scripture or whether you want to memorize this poem.
Oh.
You memorize this and you recite it back to me as your teacher, and then you stand in front of the class and you say it to the class. Well, I must have had memorized quite a bit of those things, because they called me the walking poet of Northwood.
They still call you that, the walking poet of Northwood,
No.
Bill Bob?
No, but I can still say some of those poems.
Clearly, yeah. I heard that. That's good. That's good. We can, of course, edit this. I'm going to wrap up this part, but I want to make sure that I'm doing an honor to you, too. Is there something you want me to ask you or want to talk about or something like that I haven't, that you think people should know?
Well, you know, when you grow up in a place, there's just a lot of things that happen there that you just see as daily routine things that really, you don't really take special effort to try to reserve. But the changes in the growth of town has been pretty consistent. I remember when our population was 1,300.
Wow.
Came here. And
When you came here, it was 1,300?
I think that's basically the way I remember it. And even though we have a lot of people here that have moved here, they're moving here because they see something that they really like and may not have been able to find in other places.
Okay.
So we have something to offer, something a little bit unique, something a little bit different maybe than what they could find in maybe some other communities. And I'm not saying we don't have other viable communities here that would be good places for people to live.
Sure.
I'm not saying that. But Bolivar's top of the line, I think. And, you know, all you got to do is get out and travel, and stop and talk to people and see if you'll find good people every place you go.
Yeah.
You'll find friendly people. Some areas more friendly maybe than others, but good people are there.
And everybody's got a story, right?
That's true, and you try to, you try to get them to, and most of them will. Most of them will share with you some of their experiences. We used to drive maybe to Lubbock, Texas, when our number one son was going to Texas Tech school.
Not number one son, your oldest.
Yeah.
Right? John, in case you.
Robert.
Yeah. The oldest, not that he's better than.
No.
You said it. I wanted to make sure we clarified that for people.
He's the oldest, that's true. He went down to study, though, at Texas Tech, and he had a professor down there who was called Dr. Matches. And Matches was a world noun. Everybody associated. He was a super instructor, and Rob had a chance to. He was Rob's advisor down there, and he was Rob thought a lot of him, Dr. Matches. And we would stop, though, going to and from Lubbock, Texas, at every little small town that we'd come to, that we wanted to get something to eat. We would stop and we'd always look for the cowboy trailers and see where they were all parked, and then that's where we would patronize.
That's where the good
That's
food
where
was.
we'd go, and we'd go in there and sit down by Creek's Training, and talk with them. And sometimes you tell that really that there may be a lot going on that they're probably not all that interested in.
Yeah.
Went to Benjamin, Texas one time, sat down by a cowboy, and it was close to election time. I said, "Who's winning the election down here?" He says, "What election?"
Yeah.
So he could have cared less.
Yeah. Sometimes life is simpler that way.
Well, it's
get
probably was, but that was kind of. And then you'd see people in there and sit down by them, and boy, they'd start talking to you, and then people would get up from the table over there, and they'd come all over there where you were, and they'd start, because they heard a little bit of the conversation of the first people. So, hey, everywhere you go, you'll find good, friendly people for the most part.
That's why I like talking to folks like you.
Mm.
I like talking to folks like you. And just a quick personal story too. Like I lived in Clever for several years. There was an older guy there named Leroy, and Leroy was a heck of a baseball player in Clever growing up, and he loved baseball. And he was getting a little older, kind of harder to understand. But I remember I was sitting next to him and kind of casually listening, and he was talking about baseball and how he had played a ball game down in Crane. And I swear he said he pitched to Mickey Mantle. And I said, "Wait a second, did you just say you pitched to Mickey Mantle?" And he said, "Yeah." Because Mickey Mantle, I guess, was from that Joplin area over there, and he would travel through before he was Mickey Mantle with the Yankees. And he said he pitched to Mickey Mantle, and he said Mickey Mantle hit that ball over the fence and over the creek and way and beyond. But if you don't take time to sit down and hear the stories and ask folks and show an interest, you miss stuff like that. Like you miss the story of the folks, and I just think it's fascinating.
Mickey Mantle, he did play baseball down there.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure exactly where the Boyer boys are from, but Ken Boyer and Cletus Boyer both were kind of, I think, maybe from that area.
Yeah.
In fact, Arkansas, by and large, has had some pretty good athletes.
That's
you know,
right.
Paul and Disney Deans, they were from Rector, Arkansas, which is in the Boot Hills.
Okay.
And they've hit it pretty big. And down at West Plains, there was a fellow down there by the name of Preacher Rowe.
Yeah.
Preacher Rowe played big time baseball. I think
Yeah.
he played maybe, and I played with New York, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But you go down there and they'll have an avenue named after Preacher Rowe. And Preacher Rowe went to school at Harding University where my granddaughter is going to school, and he had about every baseball record down there. He was only a good pitcher. He was a good hitter. He had the highest hitting average. He stole more bases and hit more home runs than anybody at Harding University.
Yeah. You brought that right back around to Harding University. Yeah, that's good. That's pretty good.
I scored the first points that was ever scored in that deal in a game, in the concept of the game. Played Stockton, I played on the B team. I made the first basket.
So you say Liberator Field. So the gymnasium at the middle school? Okay.
They voted bond issue, and they did basically three things in that bond issue. They built that Liberator Field house. They built also the Mitchell School, and they built a school of folk that was voted on. And when our class came on in 1953, freshman, we had the first 4 years, or that 4 years, that Liberator Field house.
So you scored the first basket. So it's interesting, the football field that's there, I scored the last touchdown varsity that was at that field before we switched. Because we switched to SBU and started playing over there halfway through my sophomore year. So second game of the season against Reed Springs, we were getting blown out, and I was a sophomore, so they put us in at the end of the game and threw a pass and caught it. And of course, we had a home game next week, and we didn't score. So yeah, it was the last varsity touchdown.
The first should be last, and the last should be first.
Was it? You mentioned that old field house. That was
I scored the last basket in that game, in that field house for whenever, because I was the first class of the new high school. And so when I was a senior, we were in the new gym, but I scored against Branson in an overtime game at the end of that game. So I got to score the last basket. You scored the first basket in that for the high school. In the high school, yeah. Yeah.
That ought to get us on the front page, shouldn't it?
Yeah, we know people. We can do that.
Out front of the
Yeah, I'm surprised the statue's not there already.
Yeah.
Well,
we had a pretty tough conference that we were in. We weren't all that bad. We were just a 50. We won that every game. But it was called the Skyline Conference. It consisted of Lebanon, Central High School in Springfield had 2,200 students, Parkview High School, which was number, they came on my senior year. That's the first year we had Parkview. And but Buffalo was there, and Buffalo had a dynasty over us in basketball that was unbelievable for years. And Buffalo beat us 12 games straight in a row. And I got to be a senior. We beat them 2 times. And it wasn't because we were so good. It was because they didn't have really the quality team that they used to have. They would have one stud player on that team every year that you couldn't believe how they could keep coming up with that kind of people.
Over Buffalo, yeah.
Yeah, they did, and they did. And they were good enough that they went ahead and played college ball. I don't know if the SMS played the SMS.
Wow.
So now, when did Bolivar's mascot change?
Changes when we had the new Little Raider field house.
Okay, so
And Harry Beecher Lightfoot went out there and he painted that in the center part of that deal, a picture of Simon Bolivar right in the middle of that deal. He did all that by hand.
oh wow.
He was that good in art.
Huh.
That's impressive. Do all that freehand.
Yeah.
Now, Lebanon, that particular year when I was a senior, won 32 games and lost 2.
Oh, wow.
And they had a guy that was a coach over there. He also was an insurance man. He had played basketball at SMS in Springfield. In fact, he played 4 years down there.
Okay.
But they had the best team. They had the best team. Lebanon
Yeah.
did. They brought 2 guys, Gene Day and Gerald Gaines, here to town, and they played over at SBU. And they were good players. They had 5 guys on the floor, and all 5 of them was getting double figures about every game. You couldn't get them.
So is basketball your favorite out of the 3 that you did, or
No, I don't know its favorite. I think probably played. I think it's a better football player than I was a basketball player.
what position did you play in football?
I was a defensive end.
Okay.
That was, I don't know if that's what I ended up playing. But I did score enough points. I was the top scorer in the Skyline Conference when I was a senior. I averaged 18 points a game, and we didn't play running basketball like we'd come down, we'd set our plays up and all that kind of stuff. You know, we probably didn't average scoring much over 40 points a game.
You started off, you said you weren't 18 points a game.
That's pretty good.
Well, we didn't have anything else, though. I mean,
I mean, 18 points a game is more points than I had in my entire school basketball career. So one of your games takes care of that. So,
well, I like to play, but really the best basketball playing I did when I was in the Army. I got on the 5th Army basketball team.
Wow.
Fort Carson, we played there, and I played with the likes of Larry Comley. You ever hear of Larry Comley?
Huh.
He was a very good player from Kansas University.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There's another guy down here in Springfield that worked at the Union National Bank, and he was on that team.
Wow.
And he was kind of our coach, and he was an All-American from Iowa State.
Wow. So were you the leader of the team then, or
No,
were you just happy to have a uniform?
But I did get to play. I get to play.
Yeah.
And Conley told me that really that of all the people he played with, that he never played with anybody that, you know, that was more a team player that could set him up there. He was
good.
a man.
So you said Larry Conley?
Comley, C-O-M-L-E-Y.
I've been doing a lot of Googling over here with all the names that you've been doing. Like, I've learned a lot about, the Secretary of State you mentioned. You know, I didn't realize, and of course when you said, Becker, that name, of course I Googled it. I didn't realize the sign that's out there across from Woods,
Yeah.
you know, he's listed as one of the notable, you know,
Yeah.
people from the
He's
area.
right
So,
there in
Yeah.
New Hart Park.
So, I mean, that's what I've been spending the day doing. Every time you say a name, I'm just over here Googling, you know, learning something new. And
Well, I think you've sold it. I mean, if you're looking to buy a property or a house or whatever in the Bolivar or the greater Bolivar area, you've made some great points of why this is a great community to be a part of. Matt Griswold, Agent Neighborhood Real Estate, give me a call. I'd love to help you out.